UConn going to the Big 12, maybe. We'll see. A lot of talks right now between Brett Yormark, and UConn and what's going on there. There is some rumors, some rumblings about coaches don't want UConn to come to the Big 12. A little bit of travel concerns. Also, UConn just don't know if you've heard, very good. They didn't come out right and say that from what I saw, but you know, I would like to think that's probably a little bit of the reasoning there. So, Kent, let's get your thoughts on UConn to the Big 12 first, and then we'll talk more about the Big 10, the Big East question.
Well, we're doing a basketball show, so from a basketball standpoint, it makes a ton of sense, and it'll be a great ad for the Big 12. But most of these moves are basketball is considered, but football is the reason that most of these moves are made primarily, right? Am I crazy to say that that's why most of the conferences have been realigned? And
No, you're exactly right.
Before I go any further, by the way, travel concerns, like, get real. Welcome to the Big Ten, baby. We're going from New Jersey to California. We don't care about that. So that's hilarious just in itself. But I don't think it's going to happen just because of football. Like, I read the article. It seems like there's a lot that has to fall into place for UConn to be able to make this move. It could happen. It would be not very soon, though. Apparently, they have, with the Big East right now, they have to give them 27 months notice that they're leaving the conference. So it's going to be at least 2 years before this happens. If they're abiding by this contract that they have with the Big East, I guess. I guess that could be broken at any time. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, from the football standpoint, it just does not make sense for this team to be joining the Big 12. And I don't know why the Big 12 would want them from that aspect. So in my mind, it's hard to wrap my brain around it right now, but I guess crazier things have happened. I mean, I never thought Nebraska would be in the Big Ten. If you asked me 20 years ago, that's kind of crazy to think about. And here we are. So I guess anything could happen. What do you think? Do you think it's going to happen?
I mean, it could. I mean, they're talking about Gonzaga as well, possibly going there. Those talks have kind of dwindled out a little bit, and now UConn is being talked about more. So I don't know if they've replaced the Gonzaga talk with UConn, or maybe they're looking for a partner with Gonzaga and UConn. But I mean, you're correct. Every other conference looks at football because that's where you make money from your TV deal on. But for whatever reason, the Big 12 is like, hey, nobody else is concentrating on basketball, so we're going to concentrate on basketball, and we're going to kind of make that our conference's identity, and we'll be fine in football. We'll have a bunch of rabid fan bases, and maybe Gonzaga won't play, and UConn will be bad because they are independent right now. I think they're independent right now.
But is anybody as bad as UConn is right now in the Big 12? There can't be, right? Like
Houston's
Arizona State,
not good. Arizona State's not good.
They're not as bad as UConn, though, are they?
Yeah, no, they would be pretty bad in the Big 12 in football. So yeah. So I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they're thinking about football at all. I think they're just like, hey, look, a really good basketball program that has a football program. So let's add them. But I don't know. It seems weird to me. So, the ultimate point says JR, you Ohio. Be honest. No, that's Ryan Day's brother. Yeah, you have me mixed up for him. He
was on the show last night for Ohio.
He was.
Did you guys see that?
Yeah. It's amazing.
I still think it's Connor Stallions, by the way.
I think it's Ryan Day's brother, but we'll see. Did you hear the Ohio guy was on the message board talking about being on the documentary?
Was he really? Like, yeah, he was proud of it?
He literally created like a thread this morning, was like, after the documentary, no, not this morning, yesterday morning, after the documentary release, and he was like, hey, go watch the documentary. I'm in it. If you have any questions about it, let me know. And he went through and he answered a bunch of questions. I was like,
the only question I would have had was, who are you?
Yeah, he didn't answer that one. There were some people that asked that one. So I signed up.
You'll have to send me that message board. I want to read through that.
Well, you'll have to go look. I signed up for a 7-day free trial for just so because I saw a picture of it. So I was like, oh, let's go see if there's a free trial for this.
Never mind. I don't want to see it that bad. I lied.
Yeah, so I went looked at it. I honestly I mainly looked at it to see if there was any content for the show, but there wasn't
Mm.
really. It was mostly just like standard answering. So I don't know if it was he was even in it. All right, so yeah, I think like to me, if we're talking about the Big Ten, what Big East teams should the Big Ten try to add from the Big East? Like UConn is top of the list because they have a football team to me. Like they have a really good basketball team, they have a football team, they kind of fit in your geographical area, which I know really doesn't matter to people all that much, but in the sense of where you want to go geographically to increase your like reach and popularity, like you could go, I shouldn't say you could go up to the Northeast and grab a team up there. Obviously, you're not going to go get like a Boston College or anything like that, but you could reach up there, find a team up in the Northeast and be effective with that. But I mean, if I'm looking through the Big East, like there's a couple teams in there that they might go after, but for the most part, I mean, a lot of these schools are private religious schools, which I mean, the Big Ten's not against adding a religious school, but most private religious schools don't have a great enrollment. Like the team or the not the team, the school with the highest enrollment is UConn at 32,000. 32,000 would be like top bottom 5 in the Big 10 of enrollment right now. So, I mean, if you're looking at like the size of the school, you're not going to add Butler. You already have multiple teams and you're trying to add Notre Dame from from Indiana. Georgetown, maybe, but you already have Maryland and Georgetown's in Washington D.C. So, would you want to add them? Um, I don't know. DePaul has 21,000, but they're in Chicago where you already have Northwestern and then you have Illinois down in Champaign. I don't think you want another Illinois team. The only other team that I put in there, Kent, was St. John's because they do have 21,000 and they are in Queens, New York. So you want to expand in New York, but you kind of already have that New York market with Rutgers. So I I mean, obviously, like the Big East is probably not going to fall apart today, but there is a scenario where I could see Big East teams like merging with the ACC, and then some of these teams being like, well, but what if we went to the Big Ten instead? They have a lot more money, Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about it. Well, so many things actually. Is UConn the only one that has a football team in the whole Big East? Like,
Yeah, all these other schools, they don't have enough like area around them to build a football stadium. They live in such like clusters of cities, either that or they don't really have the enrollment of the school to
mm,
warrant a football team.
that's crazy. I swear Villanova used to have a team. I swear I
They
remember
they
seeing their
might
their
indeed
helmet.
they might in FCS. They
I
used
can't
to. I don't
remember.
know.
Um, no, I just I went through this and just said from a basketball standpoint who I would want, and I put Marquette, Xavier, and Creighton, and I had different reasons for all of them. Marquette, kind of the same thing that you were talking about. I know we already have a team in Wisconsin, but like it kind of fits the old model of the Big Ten of the Midwest team that's really good at basketball and always has a good team. So I would love to have them in our conference for that. Xavier, I picked selfishly because it's the closest one to where I live here in Nashville. Cincinnati's only like a couple hour drive away from me, so I could get up there pretty quickly. And then Creighton, because there's just always Creighton's always Creighton in the conference or in the NCAA tournament. So I was like, why not throw
Well,
them in here too? Why
it'd be
not?
fun for Nebraska to have that
Yeah, that
rivalry
too.
in the Big Ten. That's what
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
about as
Yeah, that
well.
would be cool. So I just picked those teams just from a basketball standpoint, what would be fun. And none of them are realistic unless we went down the path that Notre Dame went down and said, hey, we're just going to take your basketball team and put them in our conference. And the football team or the lack thereof doesn't matter because that's what Notre Dame did, right? They joined the ACC for basketball and they're still independent in football. So I'm not sure from a basketball standpoint why it even matters that much. Why not just add these teams in basketball only?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Philip had a bit of an idea here. He said Big Ten needs to add UConn, Syracuse, Georgetown, and a few more Big East teams, and then at Rutgers, Maryland, and Penn State add and make a new Big East presented by the Big Ten. Something like that. I mean, that's if you if you could have a Big Ten like basketball conference that was like 24 teams, and then you had a Big Ten football conference that was like 18, 20 teams, I mean, you would essentially be able to have your own awesome tournament at the end of the year that you're going to make so much money off of. It doesn't even really matter because all the money with the NCAA tournament goes to the NCAA anyway. Like, I think there's money to be made in basketball somehow, some way. And if you bring in like I said, like 20, maybe 30 basketball
Well,
schools, you
I
could
think that
really clean up.
I think 20 kind of makes sense because if you did split it, like I know we're like bouncing all over the place here, but if you did make like a East and a West, like I don't know, football did all the way up until last year for basketball, and you had 20 or 22 teams, then you have 10, 9 or 10 opponents that you have just on your side of the league that you play twice. And
Yeah.
then you have like maybe a couple crossover games and then a bunch of non-conference games still to get you to, the 30 or however many games you're going to play that year. So I think that would work great. And that way you start forming some rivalries. I think that's kind of what Philip's getting at a little bit is we get back to like some, more territorial rivalries instead of having like, Penn State playing Oregon. And it's like, oh, that's interesting and weird, I guess. But hey, let's
Yeah.
watch it.
You have Penn State and Villanova. That'd be like a Pennsylvania rivalry there. You have Syracuse and Rutgers, Georgetown and Maryland. Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at this like from the stance of the conference, they're never going to do it, right? They're not going to add
Yeah.
teams just for basketball. It kind of
No.
sucks, but I mean, if we're thinking about it just for funsies,
Yeah.
it's fun to
We can
think
do it.
about. Yeah, I mean, if we were in charge of the Big Ten, that's what we do. But I mean, I don't think the Big Ten would ever add a school that doesn't have football attached to it. I mean, I don't think they would do that where they're like, yeah, we have 30 basketball teams, but only 20 football teams. I don't think they do that.
Maybe. I don't know. It would. Yeah, I'll tell you what would make them do it though.
Money. I mean, if basketball changes and you can make some more money off of that stuff, like I'm sure they would. But I like this idea. Big Ten goes to 30 teams, 3 conferences in the Big Ten, East, West, and Central. That would be fun.
That'd be. That would be the day we hit 30 in either football or basketball is the day I retire from making content for the Big Ten. That's
You're
too
like
many teams, man.
you're like casual Big Ten Central.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to zone in on a division because this is already out of hand, man. I can't keep track of 18 for basketball and football. Like I'm supposed to know all these guys' names. Like, nah, man, I can't do this anymore.
Did they not
30?
realize? They don't realize how casual I am. Why are they putting 30
Yes,
teams in
dude.
this conference? Like, barely keep up with 18. Come on, guys.
Seriously.
You know how long that commercial is gonna get?
Commercial's gonna be going up. 10-minute commercial. It's gonna be that long.
They're gonna be like, we can only show the commercial twice a year because of how much money it takes to do a 1-minute commercial.
And it takes 6 months to watch it anyways. There's just a channel that just replays the commercial. The Big Ten commercial channel.
And that's what the Big Ten Network does for 30 minutes every day. It's just a commercial over and over.
That's great. I love that.